Hey everyone, this is AudioBlood. I am here with Stark4Machines, and we are going to
Dark
be
for
casting
machines.
the ExileCon Top Racers qualifier event, which was a race to 80 that was pausing consistently on my screen for no reason. Okay, it's playing now. So, this was a race to 80. The winner of this race got a ticket to the ExileCon final event. It was invite only, and the goal of a race to 80 is, of course, to get to 80. So, we are in the final 10 seconds in the countdown before this begins. The four runners we have on our screen, you can see are Zizarin, Terrence, Nugian, and the Uber Elite. These are four of the best racers in Path of Exile. Wouldn't you
I'm
agree?
actually not that familiar with Terrence. Do you know his history? I know the three others, but
So
I'm not
actually,
familiar with him.
I wasn't that familiar with Terrence, but then doing a couple of these casts with other people, he's
Mm-hmm.
in every single one of them, right up neck and neck with everybody. So
That's funny.
while I wasn't actually familiar with him originally, in all of these qualifier events, he is doing just as well as everyone. Actually, in the last video I watched, he was running a Templar while everyone else was running Witch. So I
Oh,
thought that was
look at
pretty
that.
interesting.
And he's Templar here too. And Nugi's Duelist, Zizarin, and Uber Elite are both Shadow.
So
Now, do we know if this is a mule or?
So I don't know for sure right now, but I think that we're actually pretty likely. I can't think of any good reason to mule on any of these particular characters.
Mm,
Normally, you only see the mule for like the onslaught gem for a
Fire.
witch.
Yeah.
But it's pretty interesting to see what these guys are doing. I'm curious to see if they do go with the mule strategy here, but I don't think they are. I think these are likely to be their actual characters.
Uber Elite getting chonked by Hillock right there.
Hillock is a little bit dangerous sometimes, but it looks like everybody's going to be able to clean him up without dying. Terrence taking his time a little bit with that glacial hammer slow attack speed.
Wow. Oh, that's right, because Templar does start off with Glacial Hammer. Ugh.
Yeah, it's not the greatest place to start for the leveling. So, what do you
No.
think makes him go with the Templar over the more popular Witch or Shadow that we see in a lot
Uh,
of these runs?
you know, I played one Templar my entire PO's career, and it died. It was a Storm Call Templar that died in Merciless Dried Lake. So, long story short, you got me.
So
I
I've played a lot of
uh
Templars. I was a big
Okay.
fan of that run away and drop some totems playstyle,
Hmm.
but I find it unlikely
Interesting.
that's what he's doing here because that is not a quick way to play through the game.
Interesting. Wow.
Um,
Yeah,
so
it's right, because
right, exactly.
Hierophant totems, because the Templar, no one ever really went Hierophant, or no one really ever went Templar for totems before the Hierophant rework. That's right, I remember that.
Yeah, the cast speed increases and the
Hmm.
bonus to the totem placement speed really make Hierophant like unparalleled when it comes to spell totems. But like I said, it's unlikely that that's what we're going to see Terrence doing here. So I'm curious to
Interesting.
see where he goes with this. And it's too bad this was 6 months ago. I'd love to ask him why he's
Yeah, this
playing
is
Templar in these races.
Legion League. Yeah.
And we,
Uber Elite Mud Flats already. Oh, Zizarin was muling. Look
Zizarin
at
was
that.
muling. Yeah, I just noticed that too. It looks like he's also going Templar. Now,
Wow.
I do believe this race was long enough ago that it was um, what's the one, Orb of Storms meta. So I think we're likely to
Okay.
see a bunch of Stormbrand,
Stormbrand. Got it.
which that would make sense for the Templar if you're going for that
Mhm.
extra brand attached to enemies that they get in their ascendancy.
That's got to be what they're doing. Very, very interesting to me that Nugget chose a duelist, because usually in races, well, it's to 80. Maybe he's playing the long game, but usually in shorter races, everybody wants to go spells because you don't really need or have to get weapons for that.
Yeah, I mean, back in the heyday of Sunder racing, I mean,
Mhm.
everybody ran Duelist at all times. That was pretty much the only class that anybody used. But ever since the surge of Stormbrand and then eventually Orb of Storms leveling, you don't really see those Duelists anymore. So it's cool to see that actually in this race because we do get kind of used to seeing the same things when we watch these spell casting based builds.
Mhm. Yes. Yes, it does seem the racing meta is spells.
Yeah, and I think that's for the simple reason, like you said, you don't have to get the items to make spells good.
Right.
You don't have to worry about getting good attack damage on
Ooh,
your
Uber
weapon.
Elite. Ooh, Uber Elite getting stuck there.
You got to be careful when you're fighting Hailrake, as
Right.
many of us could tell you from our own unfortunate ends against him in our hardcore leagues.
Well, it's tough because he slows you. The danger is the chill. The chill.
Yeah, it's the chill combined with if you get trapped by some of his minions at the same time and you just get locked into
That's
place,
right.
and that's
And
that.
that almost, yeah, that's almost what he was doing. Almost seemed like that was happening.
We've got Noogie fighting him as well. He's doing a better
Hmm.
job of clearing everything out. That ground slam is actually doing a
Ground
lot of
slam.
work.
That's what that is. That's why I don't recognize it.
Um,
So, oh, and then Terrence on the Hellrick now. Let's
Yeah,
see.
so the reason that these guys are killing Hailrake, for those of you who might not know, you might not be familiar with Path of Exile or the racing community, is has a quest reward in town that is a Quicksilver Flask. And a Quicksilver Flask increases your movement speed whenever it's active, and since this is a race, going fast is pretty important.
Yep. Yep. I think that's a must do. Plus, I do know that when you kill Hellrake, I do know it gives you a portal scroll if needed. So you get that option.
An important thing to note, which we did see Terrence do a minute ago, is you'll actually notice a lot of times these players don't use portal scrolls. They log out and go back to the uh, login screen, and the reason for that is they just don't have a lot of portal scrolls, and sometimes you need to use a portal scroll, so they tend to save them for when they need them rather than just using them willy nilly like you or I might,
Yeah.
200 hours into a league.
When I stream, I like to call that the ghetto portal.
That is pretty much what it is in these guys' case. Now, you'll notice that Nugi right now, he's actually just passed the turnoff for the um,
The crab, right?
the crab skill quest.
Yes.
So it's an interesting choice that these runners have to make when they're playing these races. Is which point quests are worth doing, which are not, and whether or not they want to spend the time getting those skill point quests if it's worth it for them. And it looks like for now at least Nugi doesn't feel that that's worth it for him.
Mm,
Now, the crab quest in particular is one that you'll actually see a lot of people come back at for
yeah.
after level 10 when they have access to Flame Dash or Leap Slam, and they can skip all those little gaps in that map layout
Yep.
so that they
And
can get
just
it as
get
quick
to
as
it quicker.
possible.
It was funny. I was just talking with Tai Tai, and he was mentioning that he likes to drop a portal at the crab, or he likes to drop a portal before the bridge in Submerged Passage, and then he likes to take the lower prison waypoint back to the crab. He says a
Hmm,
lot of people take ledge waypoint or whatever back to the crab. He likes to take lower prison.
interesting. I wonder, did
Mhm.
he say why he prefers prison to that ledge that everyone else tends to take?
He says it's more efficient. I'm trying to remember the reason
Oh,
why.
actually, that makes sense because the lower prison waypoint, you have to run past it. It's literally right in
Mhm.
front of you. Whereas the ledge waypoint isn't necessarily on the way. It can be out of the way a little bit, and it tends to be on one of those raised platforms, and you can't necessarily jump straight to it. So that actually makes sense. It would be more efficient to hit the waypoint that's directly in front of you.
Hmm.
Now, I
Do,
do
do,
notice. Oh, go ahead.
do you mean the climb?
Oh, I do mean the climb. That is what I mean, not the
Mm-hmm.
ledge. Yeah, I guess the ledge is right on the way. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe he just prefers to have that extra level for that movement skill, so that he can hit 10, maybe. Though, yeah, I guess that's a little early for level 10, but
He
it
was.
wouldn't be
I
ridiculous.
can't. I have to review the VOD. He was saying something about that it's quicker. It's not because of the damage or anything, but I don't know. I have to review the VOD. Or hey, if you're wondering, just ask Tai Tai. He's great.
Now, one thing I do want to point out is while we do have our two Templars in Terrence and Zizarin, and we have Uber Elite in the bottom corner as a shadow, uh, we do see that our duelist, Nugi, has a skill that none of the other racers do, and that is his banner that he has on his back. which
Look at
is
that.
not something we get to see very often anymore because I think it's only the duelist and maybe the marauder that get access to that while leveling from
Right,
a
right
quest
away.
reward. So
Now that would be a war banner, is that right?
it should be a war banner, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Takes a little bit
the
to
dread
get
banner is
him.
not as helpful. It's really more for defensive or stacking impales. Neither of which are something we're going to be doing in a quick race.
Got it. I'm
Also,
so curious to see what he does because I know these Templars are going to go Stormbrand. And
the
the Shadow, I'm sure, is going to go traps or mines.
yeah, I mean, it wouldn't make any sense to go anything else unless he's just going for some kind of higher damage Stormbrand build with the Shadow, which I could also see being a plausible option. The only one that's obviously definitely not going for any sort of Stormbrand is the Duelist.
Right.
Another benefit he does have from that banner is as it gains its stacks while he kills
Mm,
enemies, you can drop it to gain short boosts of speed. But honestly, the amount of speed you get only lasts for it's like a quarter second or something crazy short, so it just doesn't matter all that much.
interesting. Ah, yes, the prison layout, one of my favorites. Yeah, it's always the decision here to go left or right after the waypoint, and I guess you just get lucky or not. I don't know if there's a way to read this to see if you run into chatters or not and get a dead end.
Now, for the lower prison, I'm not confident that there's actually a way to tell. The only thing I know is if you turn up and if you see
Oh,
the
he's doing a
trial
trial.
right away, then
Mm,
you know that that's a bad way to go, and you want to turn around and go down instead because the trial's
got it.
always going to be up.
Oh,
Um,
he's gonna tank the spikes. Look at that.
he's got a oof, he's tanking the spikes again,
Again?
and this is a hardcore race, so dying here would be an 11-minute setback. That's no
Yeah,
small amount in these races.
that's right.
Now, the reason he is doing this is because it is a race to, I believe this is to level 80. So
Hmm.
that means that they are actually going to be ascending. They're going to need that extra power to get through to level 80. In some of those shorter Act 5 Katava races, you see the players just
Mm,
entirely skip
I skip
ascendancies.
most everything. Yeah.
Now, this layout that Nugi is heading into right now, the upper prison, I believe you almost always want to go to the left or upward on the map in this layout because the exit I think about 75% of
Hmm.
the time is in that direction, and the other way is generally a dead end.
Interesting. Hmm.
And these are just things that, you gather watching racers, talking to racers, watching these videos over and over and over again. And you'll notice almost every racer will go up as soon as they enter that area. And you'll actually see Terrence hit one of the layouts that is not to the top. So he goes up, sees that there's no branch right there, and he heads straight down to the bottom.
Did we just see a Ziz rip? What happened to the Ziz screen there? Oh,
Oh,
oh, weird.
it
Huh.
looks like they were just catching us up on everyone's position in the race.
Got it.
Looks like Ziz is really exploring this map a little bit here.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he can't find the either can't find the exit or he's yeah he can't find the exit.
There it is. He's looking for the
There's the
trial.
trial. Got it.
See, now these trials
Terrence
used to
coming
just
up to
be skipped.
Brutus.
Oh, we have our
Uh,
first boss fight in a second.
his first fight.
So, real quick before that starts, I will point out we used to skip these trials until later on when we had movement skills, but with the inclusion of Dash, a
Mm-hmm.
relatively new addition, we can actually clear these trials pretty quickly at low levels, especially when you can jump over this wall here. Um, if Ziz ever manages to get over it.
Literally
So,
one of my favorite movement skills in the game. All right, we got a Brutus. We got a frost bomb down.
so we're
Flame totem.
ooh, yeah, we got that purifying
Wow.
flame totem. You don't see that very often in these runs.
No, flame totem, frost bomb, and I think I actually forget the name of that skill.
Uh,
Uh,
you know,
shock. It's wave. Shockwave.
is that
Shock.
wave of conviction? No, that's not
It's
wave
not
of
wave of
conviction.
conviction. Um, I might look it up
You know, I
because
hope
I've
you
never
do.
played it.
Oh, and there he goes. He takes down Brutus. Now, Brutus, for those of you who are pretty new to Path of Exile, he's going to be a lot harder than that for you. He can be pretty rough on a lot of players' first characters. I know a lot of people who have really struggled to take Brutus down on their first characters. They just don't have the in-depth understanding that these guys do to be able to really do the damage to beat him before he basically attritions you out of your
Mm,
HP.
It's not Flame Surge. No.
I'm trying to look at his skill bar to see if I can see it on there, but honestly, it's so small I can't tell.
Purifying Flame. That's what it
It
is.
is Purifying Flame. All right.
Purifying. I've never played it.
Neither have I. Honestly, I play a lot of witch builds and very little of anything else.
Look at
Let's
it.
just go. Ooh, and
Oh,
we
the
see Terrence
log.
log.
The log.
Yeah, so
That
that's what
sucks.
happens. Those dogs will jump on you
Uh,
and surround you.
yeah, couldn't get away from the dogs. Wow.
And we have Ziz doing a great job of catching up after his mule. He's on Brutus Fight as well now.
Yeah, that's right. You got explosive trap. It looks like I love that. I love explosive traps. Such
Yeah,
it does such good damage early on.
that combination of explosive trap and frost bomb really does a lot of work at these early levels. Like honestly, until I tried out the racing strats a little bit, I didn't really understand why it was so good. But it really crushes these enemies, and he takes down
Amazing.
Brutus with ease.
Yeah, so much. It's like so much cluster damage. It's really nice to use early game.
And we see Nugi being our first to enter the ship graveyard. Looks like he's doing pretty well for himself up there. Oh, and it looks like we're going to get a look at a few different racers who are
Ah,
ahead.
Tai Tai. Tai Tai is one of my favorites. Simply because of his personality while he's racing.
Honestly,
Um,
since the recent announcement from Tai 23 that he's retiring, I think you could make
mm,
a very strong argument that Tai Tai is the best racer in Path of Exile right now. He's extremely good at this game.
he would love to hear that. It's funny because he just told me that he's been doing it about as long as Ty 23. I think started when Ty did,
Well, it's
and
tough to compete with a prodigy.
wow. Oh. And there's so many veterans in this field. Like Roth is a veteran, Nugi's a veteran, Havoc is definitely a veteran.
Fight Guard's been around for a long time too.
Yeah,
Oh, and
Den Doom, which I'm sure is in this race.
yep, and we saw Uber lead earlier, another
Yeah, another
well-known
one.
player, and we see Tai
Yep.
Tai making short work of Merveil. I looked down, I thought he was still in the first phase, and nope, he's done with the fight and moving on to Act Two. Now, it's fun to see how these characters move into Act 2, because Act 1 is really, really linear. You have no options to make, really. You don't have any decision branches. Act 2, you finally start to get some decisions, especially in these longer races, primarily through the bandits. Because not only does choosing how you do the bandits speed up or slow down your run, but it also affects your character for the rest of the entire race.
That's right. It's funny. I was just talking with Octavian about who people choose, and some people even choose Creighton for the move speed.
Yeah, the move speed is great on Creighton. The resistances and
Oh
crit
yeah.
multi are obviously great on Alira, and those are pretty much the two options you see people go with in these races.
Mhm.
For I think
A
two
lot of
reasons.
yeah. It's funny. Octavian mentioned the only reason that people save Oak is because the fight's so long.
Yeah, well, that's actually one of the two reasons I was gonna say is
Yeah.
uh, by saving somebody, you really save a lot of time. Those fights can take a little while, especially the Oak fight, especially if you're doing any physical damage and Oak Immortal calls himself to be immortal for a little
Right.
while. They can take a long time, and whichever one you choose to help, you skip that fight. So if you fight all three to get the two skill points, well, now you have to fight all three. So choosing
Yeah.
to save one not only gets you their bonus, but it also saves you an entire fight.
Right. Garotha fighting Merveil, and he's got him. What is it? It's ice shot, is he using?
Is lightning arrow, I think.
Oh wow.
He's just, the well-known racing skill lightning arrow, of course. That's what everyone uses these days.
Mm.
Meanwhile, Fightgar is pushing his way into Act 2 as well. Um, and we're really seeing a lot of these players pushing into Act 2 around the same time. These guys tend to push for around 17 minute or lower Merveil kills. I believe that's the mark a lot of them shoot for. So we're seeing some slightly slower kills here, and I think that's just partially because we're on a hardcore race. So these guys are pretty concerned about dying. So they might be playing a little bit safer than they otherwise might be, because it's not a 1 minute penalty like it was in the racing finals. It's a 20-minute penalty. You got to restart your character.
Ah, it was shrapnel shot.
Shrapnel
Lightning,
shot, of course.
yeah, lightning arrow is level 12.
Ah, okay. So he's not level 12 yet.
No, shrapnel shot, and he's still using it too. Interesting. I always love watching people race Ranger. It's usually one of the hardest to like solo self found kind of league start. So I love watching that.
And I think one of the reasons it's hardest that a lot of people don't really give credit to is the beginning nodes in the ranger tree don't
Hmm.
give you a lot of damage or a lot of life. It's not
That's
like
right.
going. Oh, looks like we're choosing our stream quality to be high real quick. um, we have,
I'll take it.
if you go the route of like the Marauder or the Duelist, you have a ton of life nodes right there waiting for you. The Witch and the Templar have a bunch of elemental damage nodes. The Shadow has a bunch of generic damage nodes, and Ranger has some weak nodes at the beginning of their tree, so these races
Mm.
can start a lot slower for them than it does some of these other ascend or these other base classes that you might choose to play as.
Yeah, I mean that's my favorite class, and I feel like if you're racing, you're never going to go the evasion and life path. So you're going to have to do uh, what is it, bow projectile damage, and I think there's a little bit of speed in there
Now, I
too.
I actually really like this race because we see this variety of strategies, and that's
Right.
something you really don't see a lot.
Right, because I feel like all these other spell meta races are just I see the same class, the same skill. So it just comes down to who's more consistent at using Orb of Storms as a witch and getting good RNG. So I totally agree.
And not to get what we're saying wrong for anyone who thinks that we're saying it doesn't take skill to play like that, because obviously it takes a ton of skill to play that witch well. Um,
Sure.
it's just more interesting to see a
Yeah.
variety of strategies, see how different
Definitely
people
more
play different
entertaining.
characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so.
And I think that a cool way that we could see things moving in the future is one, longer races where the
Mm-hmm.
sheer power of that Orb of Storms build doesn't just overwhelm everything. Or two, we have the some races that are class locked, like everybody must play a ranger or
I
something to
was
that effect.
actually I was actually thinking, I was talking to Octavia and I was saying, hey, why don't I come up with a race
Oh,
next
Garotha
league?
nearly dying to the traps in his
The
Ascendancy
traps.
trial.
Ooh, those saws. I
Those
mean,
saws
the
are
thing about the
rough.
yeah, and the thing about the saws is if you get caught in the path and you follow it, it can kind of tilt you,
Yeah.
and like you can get go into panic mode, and that can cause a rip right there.
Yeah, especially these early levels when you're moving a lot slower than you're used to.
Mm,
And you're used to, oh, well, I'll just outrun the saw. I won't be on it for long. And that's not
right.
so true at level, 12, 15 that these characters are right now.
That overconfidence can be a killer.
And we see here, Garotha is moving up to
Coming
do
up
a
to
dangerous little fight to save
Fidelitas
Helena.
or Fidelitas or whatever his name is.
Yeah, he's.
One of my favorite little lore tidbits is this is Malagaro's gay lover.
Is it really? I didn't
It
know that.
is. Malagaro, it looks like he's okay,
Yeah,
but
he seems fine.
Malagaro used Fidelitas, whatever, uh, started experimenting with the gems on him
Hmm.
and kind of turned it into his own work of art and then turned him into some lightning fighter monster.
Well, the more you know. There is a
Yeah.
lot of lore tucked away into these games, and sometimes you get a little caught up in hitting spacebar or whatever button you have that skips text to get to maps a little bit quicker and get that edge on your fellow players at the beginning of a race if you're not playing solo self-found. And I really think everybody would benefit, myself included, from taking the time to like actually play through and read what these quests are. A lot of them we just kind of fly through and miss things like that. Like I would never know
Was
that that was true.
was that a ghosted rare on Noogie that he just ran away from? I thought I saw his life just tank.
These early levels, it's tough. You can run into a rare with allies deal
Mhm.
extra fizz damage, and pretty much anything gets dangerous at that point, ghost or no. However, he does make extremely quick work of Fidelitas there.
Yeah, does a lot of damage. Yeah, a lot of damage for his melee character, it looks like. Wow.
Now, you'll notice we've seen a couple times, and I haven't pointed it out before, and you can see in his inventory, he has a lot of weapons that he picks up and drops and picks up and drops as he goes.
Mm,
And that's just the life of playing a melee character in a race.
all right. A lot of inventory management. I mean, good on him. I
And
wouldn't know what to do with it.
oh no, I while I say that I prefer the varied meta that we have here, uh,
Mhm.
I am comfortable with the witch meta. I'm much more comfortable
Mm.
running that. I know
Do
what
you
I'm
race
doing.
yourself?
I do, but I'm nowhere near
Oh,
these guys' skill at doing it. The quickest I've ever completed
oh,
an Act 10 run is about a little south of 4 hours. So I'm not
good
quite
deal.
professional, but I'm doing okay.
Good deal. Good for you.
Uh,
I mean, I'd love to learn more about it. I don't know if my time to race is coming up, but eventually
Honestly,
I'll do.
I can say to you and everyone else watching this, if you are interested in racing, then
Mm-hmm.
the people you see on this screen, going to their Twitch channels and
Mm,
asking them questions, watching their VODs, seeing what they do, and literally just copying it goes an incredibly long way towards improving your
right.
ability to race.
Right. The teachers, the PoE race teachers.
And we see that we have kind of a spread of ranks right here. Even though they all look like they're kind of in the same place, we have Tai Tai, our highest rank right now with 7, and Garatha, or rather Nugi, pulling up the proverbial rear at rank
Mm,
17. But I think that's just based off of experience right now because they are gunning for level 18. And this early on, the small differences in experience, it's really not what's going to decide the race, 55 level or 65 levels from now.
that's right. Weaver making no trouble. Or our players have no trouble with Weaver here. Garotha fight Gar.
Now you see a lot of
Good
these
position.
players try to one cycle the Weaver, try to kill it before it jumps up into the air, but it's tough without some pretty lucky drops and some good
Yeah.
RNG on that fight. So you'll often see that the Weaver does get its jump up into the air off, and then you just kind of gotta stand around and wait for it to come back down.
Just curious, how long have you been playing PoE, or how did you start? Or tell me a little bit about the history of your PoE career.
So I started playing PoE because a friend of mine recommended me to play it in Essence League. I'd played way, way back, like pre Atlas and stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
only to like the end of Act One, and I didn't really get into the game then. But around Essence League, my friend invited me to play with him, and I started playing a little bit then, but I didn't really take it seriously until 3.0 hit, and I was just blown away by the scope of 3.0 that I decided I was really going to get into the game. And since then, I've put, I don't know the exact number because I play on the standalone client, but definitely a couple thousand hours into the game. I play a lot of Path of Exile. I go pretty hard on all the league starts. Me and a friend of mine
Mm-hmm.
get together and just jam for 2 3 days and do nothing but play Path of Exile.
How many hours straight do you play League Start?
Normally about 22 or so. Then we sleep for four
Ooh.
hours. Then play for
Oh,
20
you do that?
hours.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, we're
Ooh,
also
Noogie getting
oof. Yeah.
chunked by
Noogie getting
a
chunked as
Weaver?
hard as my sleep schedule while fighting the
Wow, by
Weaver over there.
Weaver.
Yeah, looks like
Wow.
now he's just waiting for it to come back down. He's recovered his life nicely. And there
The
it is.
sun took away.
Now it's actually funny because I feel like when he was still using Ground Slam a minute ago, he was really killing Fidelitas way quicker than he just killed the Weaver.
He can't. Oh, his inventory management. He can't. He needs the gloves. He can't get. He can't get the gloves. And the
And that right there is a skill you got to practice. It's
yeah.
it's harder than you think to really pick up these items and manage your inventory in a meaningful, quick way. Uh,
Uh,
and sometimes these guys just make it look a little too easy.
yeah. The melee noogie. You could see him kind of just acknowledging it and jumping up and down a little bit
Now,
there,
do you want
showing
to
some
take a second
frustration.
to maybe tell people what these racers are looking for on their gear? Because as we know, Path of Exile has a lot of affixes on its items. So what are
Sure.
these races really looking for?
Let's see. I think when we're in early acts, I think it's all about links and colors, isn't it? When you're doing gloves and boots and things like that.
Yeah, I think the only stat you're really looking for on your items in the first couple of acts is movement speed on your boots.
Yeah, moves you on boots and life and res.
Yep, actually, we keep going back to it, but that's because he's the one kind of breaking the mold here. Nugi is the only one we're going to see who's going to be needing to get a lot of items that he must pick up because you got to upgrade your
Mhm.
weapons. If you don't upgrade your weapons as a character that's using a strike skill like Sunder, your damage is going to fall off crazy hard. So you have to continuously update those items and look for the good bases that you know have high attack speeds, high DPS, and keep evolving as you're playing through the game.
Right. I still cannot figure out why he chose a duelist.
I,
It's killing me.
I think this race was before the Stormbrand like super hard meta.
Ooh,
Oh,
ooh,
we're getting
ooh.
Noogie. You could see the look on his face right afterwards. He knows he just got away with one there. The clutch level up, healing him to
Yeah,
full instantly.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, you're dealing with a ghosted rare shooting firestorm at you, which is cluster damage. Mm,
Yeah,
not
that's
not friendly.
it's a quick way to die. Luckily for him, he got that nice little level up, which does heal you to
Saved by
full.
the ding. Ugh,
Well, let's see
wow.
if Nugi can put that to good use and, keep a good pace up moving through this race. It doesn't look like he's let it slow him down at all. He's still Sunderboying his way through, in
Right.
honor of Rise, of course.